Welcome, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Redamozo. Let me know if you can hear me or see me. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you for joining us on this. I guess if you're coming from where we're at, or I don't know where anyone else is coming from, Alabama, Idaho, maybe. Good, you can see me. We are, my Alexa says 103. Donna says 105. We are close by, but we're different parts of North Texas. And we're trying to figure out what it feels like. I heard it's supposed to feel like 117 or 120, Donna. That's what I'm thinking, that I heard. But who knows? Everything's hotter, bigger in Texas. But thank you for joining us. Again, my name's Lisa Redamozo, and I am joined by Donna and Leah on our team. And we've got a couple of other folks on our team that couldn't do it without them. It's truly is a team effort. Thank you all for joining us. I am not afraid to say that the Talent Search folks are my favorite folks out of all the trio folks because you're my people. Over 33 years ago, my first I stumbled upon Talent Search, a brand new one that was funded right before they hired me. So I was a new director of a new talent search. Fell in love with it. At the time, I thought I wasn't going to last 30 days, let alone over 33 years being in Trio. And Trio was mentioned, but I was all about talent search. I literally didn't care about the other programs in Trio because I was just trying to survive. And loved it so much that we expanded. By the time I left 10 years later, the agency I was at, we got two more talent search programs up and running. And then I dabbled in Upward Bound, thinking, oh, we can run talent search for hundreds of students. Surely we can have somebody work part-time with Upward Bound, which just has 50 students at that time. And I soon learned that there's a big difference, very big difference. Upward Bound and Talent Search are in the same solar system, but they're totally different planets. And I prefer the Talent Search planet simply because I think I was raised professionally with Talent Search. It was hard for me to switch over to Upward Bound. Luckily, I found the right folks that could do the direct management of that, and so I could serve as the overall supervisor. Loved my time there at the agency, but when I had to move to a different part of the state, there weren't trio programs where I moved to. So I don't know what I was going to do. I definitely needed a career work path program, possibly an apprenticeship at that time, but there wasn't anything there. So long story short, um, after my first 10 years as being an Upward Bound and Talent Search director, I accidentally, not on purpose, fell into, without a business plan, being a full-time trio consultant, initially for Talent Search and Upward Bound, but then it expanded. And now I just kept doing it one gig at a time, right? Just thinking one of these days I'm going to have to go ahead and get a real job. And I'm still doing that over, 23 years later after not planning to, but accidentally starting Nosotros Education Center to work with TRIO programs now across the country. Still doing one project at a time until, it runs out. But thank God through some of you out there already that are existing clients or word of mouth, we're still here and we're doing great because of the clientele that we have, and we just love what we do. So one of those things there that one of the services that we offer, and I've shown you the website so you can see a little bit about ourselves and about our team. We offer some comprehensive services. The majority of them are allowable costs. So when you get a chance, check that out. There's a couple of services here dealing with proposal development, need data collection, technical reviews, grant writing workshops that are not allowable costs through TRIO. You would have to go ahead and pay for that out of other funds, right? So if you want more information, go into our services. We do have a shop where we sell our services and products. Some of the things there that are listed are, we try to let you know about our free webinars, which is what you're participating in right now. But also, if you find yourself, and there's the proposal writing workshop for Upward Bound, which is next week, we've got professional development webinars starting in August. The Talent Search one, August 10th through the 13th. So hopefully some of y'all have signed up for that. That is an allowable cost. This time around, we're splitting it up. to do half days rather than 2 full days, because that we realized for us that was a lot for 2 days to cover almost 8 or 9 sessions in 2 days. So it was suggested that we maybe break that up into 4 half days to let us and also the participants that are attending, which is you or your project staff, to get a chance to absorb the information. It's also recorded. It's an allowable cost. It would be great for your onboarding, either live or the recording, or we even will have updated courses that if you want to have on hand later on when you have folks that are coming on board and you want them to go through a certain session, um, and it can track and even gives them a little badge, I think, of completion or certificate of completion. So check that out. That is an allowable cost. Another allowable cost that we talk about is um, our technical assistance with the APR. So today is a free webinar. We're going to go through the sections of the Talent Search APR, and maybe that's all you need. You've been doing it for a million years, maybe, and we'll get into that and find out how long you've y'all been involved. And maybe you need, like most of us do, a little jump start because we go through it and then we submit it and then we bless it. Like we said, bless it, let it go, and then we kind of forget about it. Well, maybe you just need a jump start. I want to roll up my sleeves, get started. Now is the time to get started because you want to try to get most of it done. I'd say 90% of it done before school starts again, okay? Before you roll into the new year, okay? But maybe some of y'all are coming on brand new, or maybe you switch database programs, or maybe whatever. You maybe need some help. We do offer that as well. So check that out. We recommend that you at least purchase 2 hours at a time. You don't have to meet both hours, back to back. You can do 1 hour one a week or one day and then schedule another time. Some people realize that they might need more than the 2 hours, or that's all they needed. That's when we can actually log on, look at your database, help you with that information. So that's something that you might want to consider. And like I said, you may not need it. Am I echoing? Don, I just saw something that says I'm echoing.
Um, I don't know. It seemed okay to me.
You mentioned that yesterday, so that's why I mentioned it. And yes, Boys and Girls Clubs. Who are my people out there? The Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Fort Worth. That's where we started back in 1994, and it's still around. So whether I come and go, Donna, at least the Boys and Girls Club still has their talent search programs. So thank you. I'm glad you could join us. All right. So I'm okay, right?
Yeah, I think
Tia.
so.
Okay. All right, great. Okay, so letting you know about that, but I also real excited to share with you all, and this is 100% free because I worked at the club, so we like free stuff, right? My club people understand exactly what I'm talking about. Let me go to the resources page here. Everything on here is free. All right. We've got some downloadable resources. I need to get it together so I can actually upload a folder that is specific to talent search. I've got so much stuff. I just need to go through it and upload stuff. I don't want to give you stuff I haven't updated yet. But when you guys log in there, and we've tried to separate across the board for most of the TRIO programs, specific yet to TRIO, but documents and forms that are related to verification and documentation that you can customize. There's a folder for uniform guidance. There's TRIO regulations and definitions there if you want to quickly get access to something like that. Staff training documents, information that you might have to tweak for each program, information about project evaluation, policy procedures manual, table of contents, checklists, order forms, onboarding checklists, fiscal forms. If you are currently writing or want to make sure your website and your brochure are scrubbed of any language that might be considered out of, against executive orders, here's some information there. We've got information about compliance assessments, also budget management, and some things that we found that were free that were provided by other vendors. And we're going to be trying to grow this and check back. I don't know, Donna, if there's a way to let people know automatically if an update's been made. That might be annoying. But anyway, my goal is to have a folder that says talent search also and put all my talent search stuff there. Okay. And also anything that you might want to share, and would like to share with other folks, but it's completely free. Okay. Now let me go back to this. And so it's my trio resources, and let me move some stuff around here and go back to resources here. Then we just started something called Lisa's Take. Every week or so, I'm going to actually take someone's question. Don't worry, no one is, I don't tell who it is or where it is or anything like that. But every issue I'll expand upon is going to be somebody's question. Like our first issue was with SSS, where someone was asking, another department on campus is asking me if I could do this on these days. And I know that's for SSS, but in talent search, especially some of us on working on a college campus and, boys and girls clubs, they want to start asking you to help and some things that are helpful to everybody, including Trio, but it just goes into more detail than a just yes or no answer or here are the regulations. It takes you through some guidance in Lisa talk and real talk, and also give you some examples and then give you some suggestions, okay, of how you might handle that. So it goes into more detail than just a quick email response. So that's the first issue. The second issue that I'm still working on, tweaking on, is very relevant to what's happening next week for Upward Bound clients or upward Bound folks, is that we are having a grant writing workshop. The question was, or brought up, well, can I attend during the workday? We also made those half days so that wouldn't eat up so much time. But when it's all said and done, it's 2 full days of attending a grant writing workshop, which, according to the regulations, needs to be paid out of non-grant funds, or there needs to be some arrangement or policy. Bottom line is whatever the policy is, whether they give comp time or paid out another indirect fund or out of another department on campus or at the agency, it can't come out of grant funds. So that whole issue will be uploaded, hope, by overnight. So you can check that out. You can download it. It's a PDF. Who knows? Maybe it'll help you. Maybe it's something you didn't think about, or maybe it'll give you some information so you can share back with whoever you report to on campus or at your agency to help out and say, look, it's not me. And it's really not me, it's the regulations. Okay. And of course, another one of we have all our free resources. One of our most popular ones are our webinars dealing with APR. And you all are attending the one today for Talent Search. We have tomorrow the one for Upward Bound Math Science as well. This will be recorded. We will do another one once the official, once the official APR for 25-26 is released, the documents and the website is up and running, we will do yet another free webinar called Unpacking the APR. And that's when we will have folks like Lourdes, who is our APR submission expert, to take you from how to log on to the website from the Department of Ed, who's the certifying official that needs to sign, taking you through what it looks like online. Today, what I'm going to take you through is the instructions for 24-25 that we've updated internally for 25-26. I'm going to stick straight to the questions, the format of the report. I'm not today going to cover how do I access the Department of Ed website. Who's a certifying official? What does it look like online? I'm not going to cover that. I'm going to cover the basics from the instructions, but Lourdes will later on be available. She and I will co-present on the details on how to do it online, if that makes any sense. Okay. Because who knows, they may make some changes by the time we get to that part. But doesn't mean you don't work on it now, because I do not think there'll be any major changes at all. I believe right now we're working with our clients using the 24-25 instructions and format as though they're the final ones for 25-26, because we want to hurry up and get it done. You also have a bunch of webinar recordings that you can access. We also have a YouTube channel. We have some on policies, procedures manual, some on effective college readiness programs for Talent Search, some for Upward Bound, and some overall like Trio budget management made simple. So you can check those out on our YouTube channel. Okay. So, Donna, do we have any questions before we get into the main part of our presentation, which is to talk about the APR for Talent Search?
The only thing is the Google Drive link was restricted, but I unrestricted it. So it should be working for everyone now. I just wanted to make sure and ask if everybody can access it now.
Sorry about that. I forgot to unrestrict. And you may want to check on the upward bound one for tomorrow.
Okay.
You know,
I'll post it one more time here.
thank you. And I was thinking about, I always say this, and this is going to feed right into what just happened there with that. I tell people, yeah, I've been in Trio for a long time. Since 94. It doesn't mean I'm any smarter than anybody out there. It just means I've been around longer to make more mistakes. And there you go. Forgot to unclick that. So I just want to put it out there that kind of like farmers insurance, we've seen a thing or two. I've seen a thing or two. I've experienced a thing or two. I've made issues and mistakes on my APR before, and I've learned from them. Hopefully, I try to learn from most of my mistakes there. So thank you for letting me know, and you should be able to access that now. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Real quick, Stephen, update. Have you heard status on grant competition and what does it look like for renewal? I have no information on that. Does anyone there in the chat, have you heard anything? Do you have any inside information? I don't know if they've been read. Has COE mentioned? Have they done the reading? Does anybody know anybody who was a reader? I know some folks that have been selected to be readers for other competitions that have been turned in since Talent Search. Someone told me yesterday during our SSS APR that they had heard, it's one of those games like telephone, right? I heard this, I heard that. They say, um, that talent search maybe there's a delay going on. Has anyone else heard that? That's something about September. It could have been someone just saying that. It could have been maybe indirectly from me telling my talent search clients, you know what, spend down, but if I were you, I would. Okay. COE said they're hearing delay until September 1st to be. Thank you. If we can check that COE newsletter. Are they saying that we won't know until September 1st? Or that we'll be informed prior to that, but that the GANs will be in our hands by September 1st. I'm assuming they mean no, the emails saying that you've been funded from your congressional offices are expected not to come out until September 1st, which means it's going to take a minute or so to get those GANs, the grant award notifications that your institution must have before they create any new accounts. So that's telling me. Yes, see, thank you for that. I had been telling my clients earlier in the year, even before when we were writing the proposal, scoring has been delayed. I bet it has been. I really, yes, for so many reasons. And according to COE, scoring has been delayed for so many reasons. I think they've realized, the RFP that they put out, the program application, there's issues. Anyway, that being said, I've been telling my clients, you better put away either 30 days or 6 weeks of salary and fringe benefits away and pretend that you don't have it. Spend everything else if you need to. Spend everything else down if you can, reasonably. But make sure you keep at least 6 weeks salary and fringe just in case. Best case scenario, something happens on August 1st or August, whatever, the middle of August, where you receive the award notification. Yay. And then you end up getting your GAN before August 31st. Yay. So then what happened to those 6 weeks of salary and fringe that you saved? It just stays with the department. You never downloaded it, but at least you had it there. Worst case scenario, we don't know anything until September 1st, but it's going to take a while or even later. Those of you that are familiar with EOC, that's what happened to EOC last competition. They were really delayed and they didn't know that they were refunded until the end of September. Okay, but they told them, hey, the department said, no problem, we're going to give you a one time no cost extension. So just use whatever you had left over and use it. The problem was a lot of people, by the 10 days before their grant was going to be done with, they had already spent down. They didn't save salary or fringe. So, worst case scenario is, but worst case is that well, best case is you get funded, you end up with that extra money, not extra money, money you didn't download, and it just stays with the department, not a big deal. But if the worst case scenario happens and you don't get notification until after September 1st, you still have money to pay yourself, your staff, and fringe benefits to keep going. Okay. So I think it's a win-win situation that way. Okay. Alrighty. So, did that drop any questions at all? Let me see. Competition results are not expected to be released until after September 1st. Okay. So, yes. So, if you've been spending like crazy, I would be like, you know what? Hold off. You want to hold off on that. Do you expect some of the new language from the most recent grant competition to appear in the APR, apprenticeship, workforce development, etc.? Um, Great question. The only thing, it could be that they ask how many students, what I think is whenever they ask us on section 4, how many of our seniors went on to, well, the thing is, this last APR for 25-26, correct me if I'm wrong, this is for the last year that we just are wrapping up, right? I mean, the year that we're completing. And it's not supposed to be based on the new priorities yet. We still have this APR that deals with the current priorities that we're currently under. These priorities and the grant, they don't start until, 26, 27 starts. That being said, I do not anticipate any changes on the APR, the official one for 25-26. I do expect in 26-27 there will be some changes. Number one, the priorities are different. So they're going to have to, ask you and update that. And we'll briefly go through that so you can see that obviously for 26-27, those will have to change. In the part of this, the APR, when they ask how many students participate in this priority or that priority, they're going to have to change that, or make it more specific. Then perhaps they're going to ask, how they ask us about our seniors, how many of them complete the FAFSA. Um, they may throw in how many have been, possibly, how many have participated in career pathways, possibly. But I think definitely because they've modified the performance measure for Talent Search. If you notice on the program application where they talked about the performance measure, it used to be just, oh, it's great for college enrollment if your student goes to college right away when they're supposed to. Uh, and um, and then later on, if they went to college when they were supposed to, 6 years later, right, we get to try to meet that objective on how many students earned a degree within 6 years. Well, I do know that those two performance measures have been uh, not revised, but added to it would be if a student now, I think it's a good thing if one of your seniors goes to college right away or gets into an apprenticeship um, or something similar to that. Okay, so that'll be seen on a positive either way. Before, currently, if a student, let's say one of our students goes into a career or apprenticeship program right now, it would count against us because it wasn't considered part of the objective. Now it will be. The same thing for 6 years later. If you go back and look at that program application, they modified the performance measure to basically say now they're going to ask you 6 years later, did that student, the one that went to college, did they get a degree? And the one that you told us got an apprenticeship, 6 years later, are they still, or hopefully that, depending on how long the apprenticeship is, have they moved on? What's going on with that? So I think they're trying to work that out, how they can do that. So you see, to me, it's a win-win. I just wish they hadn't thrown it on us, with how many days we had, maybe 4 or 5 weeks to get used to the idea, um, and prepare for something. Because it was totally unexpected. That totally threw me for a loop, and I had to take more than a minute to get it together and say, okay, I'm pretty sure this is something we can do because I was thinking that it was I didn't know what to think. I feel better about it now, but to answer your question, I don't see any changes major to 25-26. I do see some changes to 26-27. Okay. All right. So thank you all for sharing that information. Another reason why I like to connect and look at the chat is because I can get some updates from you all. Together, you can pull together and try to get some information. Yep. Sure enough, extension, no cost extension is probably going to be the case. I didn't think, with something being due May 1st, it's never been turned in that late for Talent Search since I've been around. And we always struggled. We used to get stuff in the end of January. and still be waiting until the second week of July. Like right now is typically when I would know if our grants got funded for talent search, but we turned them in the end of January. If you turn something in May, and there's probably a lot more applications than before, I know technology is there, but you know what I'm thinking? I didn't think that was going to happen. So that's why I told people, look, you better start saving some money for some salaries, at least 6 weeks. Okay. So, Donna, do you want to put out that poll about how many folks out there? I believe there's one poll but two questions asking y'all how long you guys have worked on. Oh, yeah, is this your first Talent Search APR? And if it is, and for those of you, maybe it's not, but I love me some Talent Search APR because to me, it's the easiest APR out of all of them. And I know you're probably thinking, what the heck? I've got 800, 1,200, 1,800 students. Yes, that may be a bunch of kids, but the report, let me tell you, if I don't have to worry about prior kids except those that graduated, 6 years ago, you don't want to mess with the SSS report. You don't want to mess with the UB report. For those of you who know, you know. And then you've also got to deal with veterans upward bound. To me, that's tough. And McNair, those are some toughies, even though they're small numbers. Small numbers doesn't mean easy or report. So I prefer Talent Search and EOC, believe it or not. So we've got folks, yes, we've got most of our folks completing it. So you probably need a jump start or reassurance confirmation about, what you're about to do. And then what database will you use for your APR? We're looking at 76% Bloomin. We've got some people using no, I guess everybody on here well, everyone who's responding happens to be a Bloomin person. Okay. Well, I've been using it for 33 years. So I'm biased. I'm very biased. I've glanced at the other ones. I've helped people with other, so if you're switching over, don't think, oh, she can't help me because she's not using Lakai or Empower. I can help you because the basics are pretty much the same. I just prefer Bloomin. I uploaded a Bloomin report too in the Google Drive that you couldn't have access to, but now you have access to, hopefully, in that folder. In fact, let me take you through that real quick, I believe, the folder. In the folder, you should be seeing it right now. You've got a folder that says the draft 2526 NEC APR documents. The reason why they have draft and NEC on there is because we've taken it upon ourselves to update all the years in red from the 24-25 instructions for 25-26. It's not the official, it's just the draft. It's our take, our assumption of what we're working with to work on our APRs with our clients. I do have the original 24-25 Department of Ed APR documents, so you can see the originals for 24-25. And then for those of you that are Bloomin users, I uploaded their guide, which is very, very helpful if you use Bloomin. And again, that hasn't been updated for 24-25 yet because that's their document. I guess I could, but you just change the years, and when you're reading at the instructions, consider it 25-26. Um, so someone said real quick, if you're not renewed, what happens with our database and files? Does the college pay Bloomin to have access to the files? You know, uh, I was going to bring up the third scenario in my little, save the money for fringe and salaries. You know, the real bad worst case scenario is if you don't get refunded. Well, then you've got that money. Well, maybe if you don't find out, right? But that is where the institution, if you have some money left over, or maybe unfortunately some people won't feel comfortable waiting, right? Let's be for real. Some staff may leave at the end of August, right? You can't blame them, right? Um, and that's just the reality of it. SSS, they went through the same problem a year ago. They lost a lot of staff. Whatever, it is what it is. So whatever you seem to have left over after however long it takes you to get refunded, with those funds should be utilized to possibly continue to pay for one person to stay on board to close out the database, or the funds can be used to, I mean, I've been hired before in a situation like that, where they've hired me to work with someone at the college to end the APR and to keep that license open enough and just to go ahead and make sure the files were uploaded to a Teams that the college has in case of an audit and just made, have it ready there to close it out. Okay. Didn't want to bring it up, but y'all brought it up. If not refunded, do you have a checklist on how to close out a grant? Yes, I do. In fact, Donna or Leah, can you remind me? I thought I put it up there. Close out of a grant. I try not to put, believe it or not, y'all, negative, not negative, but like here's in case you lose a grant or, but I will. I'll put it up there. I'll put it in a folder that says closeout documents. And then you can look at those and it's a checklist. Okay. All right. All right. So just letting you know where everything is. And now I'm going to go into the APR instructions here. You should be seeing those. See how we put in red? All we did is we went through and changed the year. And it says big old draft. Hopefully I didn't miss a year. Um, and that's what we did. So you have these instructions here. Um, and I'll get back to some of these. And don't forget, you could also put in the Q&A. But Donna, that follow-up question, I'll go ahead and answer that toward the end. I think we have plenty of time, I believe, to go through this. Anyway, instructions here. How many pages long is this? 17, 18 pages. So 26 pages. I may go back to here to answer some of your specific questions. I promise you that 99% of your questions can be answered if you would go through and force yourself to read the instructions. Okay. I know it's not fun, and hopefully I can fast track that. Okay. But I promise you, don't go on the list serve yet or on Facebook until you try to find it. Or if you're helping somebody who goes on the list serve and you can tell hasn't read the instructions, bless their hearts. They're probably busy and they're wanting to know, I, fine, answer them, but you might want to tell them, on the draft APR or last year's APR was on this page, or copy and paste in black and white. Okay. When you answer one of those questions, that's what I try to do. I'll always tell you this is what I would do, but I always start with this is what they say you have to do, and here's the regulation. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go into the form. So there's two documents. There's the instructions, and there's something that is called the APR form, and we changed it for 2526. It doesn't exist. We made it up because it comes from the 2425 form. Okay. So again, I'm not going to go into detail about how it looks on your database or how it looks on the Department of Ed website and how you get access to that. We'll have a separate webinar for that when the real deal comes out. This is more of a, hey, let's review what we should be doing no matter what database program we have. Hey, let's get most of this done now so that we don't have to ruin our Halloween, our homecoming, our college football Saturday season. What am I forgetting? Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Don't do that to yourself. Maybe around November, before Thanksgiving, you might have to double check Clearinghouse to get your official notification if some of these kiddos have enrolled officially or graduated. But you should go ahead with these year's seniors. I mean, the seniors that just graduated in May or June have a pretty good idea, even if you can't quite verify that yet until later. And the numbers may go down. I would always tell my advisors, look, I know you cannot promise me right now, but if the APR were due today, from what you know, and you know the student, I need you to tell me right now who you think's going. And it won't be, it won't be, is this your final answer? I just need an answer to give me an idea of where we're at with our college enrollment rate. I expect for it to go down, but I need something. I will not wait until November for a surprise number. I will know that if anything, it's going to be lower than what we estimate. Would I ever turn in an estimated number? No, but I will roll over the year into 26, 27 and start working on recruiting 26, students for 26, 27, even if I have not verified yet enrollment or educational attainment, because that usually, you can, there are ways to verify it ahead of time, but most of us tend to rely on Clearinghouse, which is fine. But y'all know that Clearinghouse also, at best, maybe is 60%. And Listen, when I started in Trio, we didn't have Clearinghouse. So if someone had told me, hey, there's something in the future that can help you verify maybe up to 60% of your seniors and everybody every year, I would have said, that sounds like heaven. And now, though, if you're not used to it, you're like, gosh, this is horrible. It only does 60% and it's always wrong. And it's only people who, colleges that are members that even bothers to carry the report and they come in on different times. Hey, you know what? I'm okay for 40% doing, grunt work for 40% of the students, which means following up with them either individually, personally, and asking them to text you a screenshot of their schedule at the university or a screenshot of their transcript or saying they graduated, or worst case scenario, if they tell you, yes, miss, I did graduate from UT, with this type of degree, and I'd be okay. And if okay, well, then I have a document online that I fill out and say, I spoke to the student. She told me that. That verification is allowable. We prefer third party, but the regulations do not state that that's not allowable. I prefer a clearinghouse. I prefer a screenshot of a schedule or a transcript or even a student ID to indicate that they're attending. But worst case scenario, I will take the student or even the parent saying that the student or the grandparents saying that the student is going to college or has graduated. Okay. As long as I document that, have it signed, I sign it, that I spoke to them on the phone, and then, so be it. Sometimes you have to do that. And I also, just as a tip, this is me, my recommendation is once you verify enrollment, college enrollment, and you meet your objective, um, I mean, you can keep going. You don't get any extra points for exceeding your objective. The same thing with educational attainment. This year you're looking for students that graduated and went to college by the fall of 2019. So if 20% of my students that went to college in 2019 need to graduate with an associate's or a bachelor's degree within 6 years, or even a certificate, read the directions. Um, I may stop looking after I hit my 20%. You know what I mean? If you got all the time in the world, sure, go for 100% accuracy. Okay. So anyway, um, this format is going to, this information section one probably is somewhere in your database, but you will really, um, definitely, it'll be one of the first things you see when you log on to the Department of Ed's website. Okay. A lot of it will be pre-populated. My club people out there, boys and girls clubs, you have two or three of them. I hope you still have the three of them. So I had to be very, very careful to make sure it said talent search. And one year, not to scare y'all, one year they had us mixed up. They put the PO number, the project identification number on the wrong one, and we caught it. Sometimes we didn't. One year we didn't catch it. Anyway, just be careful. So don't, for those of you, especially if you have multiple talent search programs, triple check that. People did make mistakes in the past. Okay, so now let's get to section two. And I don't know if we have any other questions about section one, but moving on to section two. To me, I love section two. I used to hate it because I didn't get myself organized. I didn't figure out a way to, how can I collect this data? So it's not like 800 that I have to double check and do all that stuff. You know what the number one thing is you collect this data upon entry of any new students every year, and you update your continuing students if needed, meaning last year's new students on the first day of 26-27, anybody who's listed here as new in 26-27, I need to move over or have a database that automatically puts them as continuing for 26-27. And in section three, that automatically updates them for me. And that's what I usually do, is have the system kick everybody into the next grade level. And then when I'm in 26-27, I turn off. And in Bloomin, turning off students means any student that was served last year that I already know is not going to be served anymore in 26-27. Like my graduates last year that are going to college, they're not going to be served. So I can just go into their student data box, and at the a student data window, and at the very bottom, I can click off the button, the three buttons that say active, served, and reported, and click all of those off. Also, anybody who moved away during the summer. Anybody who we checked at our high schools and middle schools that didn't come back, I've got to do that. Uh, so this all impacts section two and actually section three. So section two and three can be your weekly reports, if you think about it, from whatever database you're utilizing. It should be set up so when you put in a brand new student or update a continuing student, that the fields on that window are directly talking to to a report in your database that gives you this information on demand. You could run a daily performance report for section two. A lot of us struggle, and I don't think we need a lot of reporting in talent search because I think the more students you have, in a way, you need less reporting, but still consistent reporting. So, what I mean is, I don't think you need to have a fancy monthly report or semester report that is separate from what your database gives you because we're all about getting our numbers. So, section two, I have used for over 20 years as the first page of my monthly performance report that I would review with the staff at all our staff meetings and that I would give to my supervisor and that I would put in a nowadays make it a PDF and put it in a folder called formative reporting, which is just a fancy word for monthly reports. And in the proposal, talk about how we utilize the database to run weekly and official monthly reports to track demographics. There's another report in Blooming for services. We're not going to cover that today. But this would be the first page. Okay. All right. So again, from your database, from student data, or if you're using Lakai or some other place, you should be able to put information. If somebody's new, it's going to populate here, continuing populating here. And it should always match the current number of students you're serving right now. Okay, or funded to serve ultimately. But this report should grow with you during the year. So at the beginning of the year, it may be down to 300 continuing students only because you haven't put the new kids in. Then as new kids come in, it automatically should get updated in your database. So it could be now a weekly report that you look at, and you should be able to run it by target schools too, and advisor to kind of give you a little bit more slicing and dicing of where our numbers are coming from, and sometimes more importantly, where they're not coming from. All right, if you know what I mean. But see, I use what I have to do and turn into somebody at the end of the year. I use it to help me out during the year and I check it during the year. It's like the professor in one of your college classes on the first day of class says, I'm passing out all the final exam questions today. You can go and find the answers as we go along, or you can wait till the night before to fill it out. Well, I was so scared in college. I was like, I'm going to do it every day in little bits and pieces, force myself. So I'm, and that's, going overboard, but you know what I mean? Because you do have a knowledge. It's no surprise. What are we asking for? So the question is with programs as big as Talent Search and EOC, how do we get that information ASAP? It comes from the new student application and somebody putting it into your database ASAP and checking it as though every month it was going straight to the Department of Ed or Department of Labor. Which, if you think about it, I know I'm going to say this, and y'all going to hate me, but I love Talent Search. I know it actually could be done. It would force us to do this a little bit every day, so we wouldn't have such a headache at the end of the year. All right, so you get how the eligibility split in your database should be showing you everybody and the total. There should be not in any of the database. I'm sure there's a red indication or like letting you know 3 unknown, 2 unknown, and you shouldn't see that during the year. You shouldn't unless some of these students you're still on the new kids waiting for that low income verification, right? Does that ever happen where someone has said that neither parent has graduated from college and you're waiting for taxable income to come in? I'm guilty of bringing students in without having that officially in their file as low income, but I don't flag them as low income. I either just put them as in initially just as potential first gen, or I put them as other, or I put them as unknown on purpose so that I will get an error message every time I run it, letting me know, hey, you still have these many students that I said, yes, I know, but I'm going to provide them services because guess what? If for some reason by the end of the year I still have red where it says, hey, you have 15, 20, 30 students that there's no income verification to show that they're low income, Well, that's when I go ahead and make them other. And if I'm full in other, that's okay. I just maybe don't make my two-thirds that year, but I met my numbers, and it's more important to meet your numbers. I mean, you should get both your numbers and your two-thirds, right? But sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And you definitely don't want to go lower to have your two-thirds because then double whammy. You didn't hit your funded to serve and you didn't get the two-thirds because remember, your two-thirds is based on the number you're supposed to serve, not the number that you served if it's below. But then if you go over, I know it's hard to believe, then you're stuck with two-thirds on the number you actually served over. Is that clear as mud? So that goes back to my rule. If they tell you to work with 500, I'm going to work with 500. And if it throws off my two-thirds and I end up being, gosh, maybe off a bit, I'm going to take it because it's better for me to get my numbers and explain on my APR that basically, you know what? The reason I didn't get my two-thirds and I had more in other is because I know there's some folks, students in there that are low income, but we were not able to get that verification. So rather than claim, I could also put them in potential first generation only. But remember, two-thirds have to be both low income first generation. So I could spread them across 3 and 4. But I would say I know they're low income, but I don't have the receipts. So I didn't dare claim it. So I'm claiming that they're other or they're first gen only. You know, to this date, if you can you don't lose your points on as long as you serve the number that you're supposed to serve. The two-thirds is not counted in that calculation. Okay. Now, this year, it's the last year of the grant, the 25-26. This is the last APR for that funding cycle. So there's no points assigned to, meeting your numbers to serve, which is usually 3 points, and 3 points is a lot. And also in your first year, in 26-27, you won't be held to that. But years 2, 3, and 4, you will have to be at 100% capacity to get those 3 points. Um, and what I'm saying is the way the prior experience calculation is set up, the math behind it, you'll still get your 3 points even if you don't hit your two-thirds. I was this many years old when I figured that out. I just figured that out about 3 years ago, until they change it. Okay. And they haven't changed it. Um, but you definitely want to be at 90% capacity or more in years 2, 3, and 4 to have a shot at being eligible to get points for your objectives. You've lost the 3 points that you get for serving 100% of the students you're supposed to serve. Um, but at least you can go ahead and get your points for your other objectives. But if you're not at 90% at the end of years 2, 3, and 4, then you can get a big fat zero. Okay. Because you didn't have your 90%. But go for 100 after this year, definitely, and after the first year of the grant. The breakdown by ethnicity, I believe that this won't be a deal breaker if for some reason your numbers are not matching up or somebody said unknown. Well, here it is unknown. So it's not a major issue. It used to be in the past. You would really get kicked out. Now they're letting that fly. It's not a critical issue. Gender, male or female, that must add up. Again, I don't think that's going to be a deal breaker. Let me know if anybody has been kicked out because they, had it didn't match or the numbers were off. Age, here we are with age. This is age at the time of their first service in the during the budget period. So budget period would be September 1st. So what were they according to their birthdays on September 1st or when they were first served? I think they used to go by just the cutoff September 1st. I don't know how they can remember, or they never ask you what day of first service, right? No, that's for SSS and Upward Bound, but I don't think they ever on the Talent Search, there's no place to put what date they were first served. So they wouldn't be able to do that. So basically, September 1st of every year, based on their birthday, what is their age, and your database should be helping you with that. It's okay to have unknown possibly here. And guess what? Some of y'all, if you don't have an EOC in the area, you can have numbers in category 4 where it says 28 and above. Okay. 28 and above. So think about that. You can serve a whole family if there's no EOC in the area. And you show that they want college, career, financial aid, or career information. And remember, career information is opening that up. Anybody that is not, a senior or a high school grad with no post, even no, let me rephrase that. When we get to section four, you'll see that only some of the people, some of the participants count for the objectives in section four. Meaning that if you're traditionally set up where 500 of your students are split across middle school and high school students, then yes, you'll have to account for all 500 in section two, three, and four. Because the objectives in section four, the first one on persistence, is mainly for all your 6th through 11th graders. Did they go on to the next grade level? Were they promoted? Did they stay in school and go on to the next grade level? So that takes care of all your 6th through 11th graders. Then the questions about, or the objectives for high school graduation, college enrollment, graduation with rigorous, then college enrollment, sorry, then post-secondary attainment. All those are about your 12th graders or GED students that you consider 12th graders that you may be working with. If I'm working with a returning student, have y'all ever had a senior this year? Like think of your seniors this year. And I don't think everyone out there had 100% of all their seniors go to college, right? Or they've already told you, Miss, I'm not going to go next year. I'm not going to go next year, or you find out they don't go. You counted them as someone now that you thought was going, and then in November, or you find out before then somehow that they're not going. They didn't go in August. They didn't start. Stuff happens, right? Well, did you know that those students, they were seniors in 25, 26, but they didn't end up going to college after all in 26, 27. You can bring them back in 26, 27 as continuing students that are still between the ages of 19 through 27. And under section three, where you're trying to classify them, they're not a 12th grader. They would be called a high school grad with no post, which translates into other. So you can still work with them. You can say, you know what, we're 90% there. Let me update this. Let me update that. I can count you toward my 500 for 26, 27. You count for section two and three. But guess what? Because you're an other participant, high school grad with no post, I don't get credit for you going to college, or I don't have to track you. I don't get credit on anything on section four. So why did I do that? Well, number one, you're a student that we've worked with in the past and you didn't end up going to college. You needed the help in the second year, but we helped each other out because I needed the numbers. And you were already maybe low income and first gen, and that didn't change. I didn't have to have you do a new application. You're still in the program. I can provide services to you. You count toward my numbers, and I don't have to worry about if you went to college or not or graduated because you don't count toward that. But you count on the front end, but I don't have to worry about you on the back end. Okay. And you got served, and hopefully you went on to college. Now, granted, they may graduate from college in 3 years or 2 years with an associate's degree or certificate. They can tell you and you could celebrate, but because they didn't go when they were supposed to go, they don't count toward the objective, but you were able to count their numbers. So that same thinking you could use for their older brothers and sisters, their parents, heck, their grandparents. Grandparents are getting younger and younger these days, that either want to go to college or get career information or any of the services that you offer. If they're first gen low income, if they are U.S. citizen, permanent resident, they live in the target area, you can serve them. They can count toward your numbers. They won't count toward the objectives, but I need the numbers in order to count for the objectives with everybody else. Okay. So hopefully that is making sense to some of y'all, or helping you with recruitment. It truly can be a family program. And that's what I love about Talent Search. The more I found out about the regs, the more I realized how they're not that restricting. They're actually pretty darn wide open. Okay. I have to check if there's an EOC in the area. I have to be nice to EOC, work with EOC, and maybe EOC says, you know what? I barely go into that county. Have at it, you know, and that's all right. You just don't want to end up, and I don't think anybody ever will, where you're in a town search program that has a lot of adults, what they call other participants, because you will get if you have more than 10% other, a pop-up window will come up on the APR. It doesn't say you can't do it. They just want to know, Why? You can say, hey, we're working with returning students that didn't end up going when they said they would go, who bring in family members, friends, GED students. That's all. Somebody once told me, you can't do that. The APR won't let you do that. I said, no, you can do it. It's just that a pop-up window comes up and you just explain. Just like if I don't hit my two-thirds, believe me, I try. But if I'm pinned in a corner, if I'm in a situation where we haven't met our numbers, you know, then I'm not going to turn, I will do everything to get um, if I can't get my numbers with the two-thirds, I will get my numbers and then beg for forgiveness on not hitting the two-thirds. Now, I'm not going to do this every year. I'm not going to do it every year. I'm going to explain, like I said to you, my explanation is, I bet you I have 90% low income first gen, but I don't have the receipts, and you wouldn't want me to claim something I can't prove. And we're going to work on that. But isn't that the hardest thing, y'all, to get the darn low income verification for taxable? I love taxable because it makes more people eligible. My son, is eligible every other year here because my taxable income is zero, not my adjusted. So more people qualify as low income. So that's why you want to go ahead and stick to that. But it's such a pain to get. But you can't claim low income if you don't have taxable income through either a signed statement from the parent or the signed tax forms. No one turns that in. So it's really, really hard. So do your best. Definitely you want to get your two-thirds. But if it doesn't happen, and if I'm in a situation where, I've got my numbers, but if I turn in my numbers, my two-thirds is off, I'm going to turn in my numbers to spite my two-thirds, you know? Now, if I did it all the time, or if it was really whacked, a really, percentage that was really off, like just 20% or something, yeah, I could probably get called on it and said, what's the deal with this? So I'm just trying to keep people from avoiding. Um, some people have told me that they actually serve less students to get the two-thirds. You see, where's that a problem? And I said, no, no, because that's double whammy. You didn't serve enough. And that's where you can get in more trouble doing that. Definitely, because you didn't spend the money, you didn't serve the students. Than me saying, look, I served them. They were all eligible. I just missed my two-thirds because I didn't have the documentation to prove they were low income. And you don't want me fudging on that, right? So that's kind of what I would do that. I was about to say that you don't want to end up with a talent search program that has more adults than students. But I tell you what, you may think that's kind of crazy talk, but I've run into plenty EOCs that are in areas where there are no talent search. And when we look at their numbers, they have like 70% high school kids and only 30% older students, adults. And I'm like, that could be a problem. That could be a problem. You better try to get back down to the population. The regulations will state that you don't want to dilute the purpose of the program. So that's why they allow you to have, because it's on the APR, but you don't always want to make it so percentage wise top heavy that, an EOC looks like a talent search and a talent search looks like an EOC program. Somebody has their hand up, but I don't know if that they meant to. Donna, did you? Sorry.
Me. There are some questions in the Q&A, and you may have just answered them as you've been talking, but there are several questions about getting your numbers.
Mhm. Sorry. I had to get some ice. All right, so let me look at the Q&A. And yes, and in talent search, when people tell me what's the number one thing is you got to get your numbers, right? So let's talk about those questions here. I thought the two-thirds were not negotiable. Well, it's not. I mean, you sign an assurance. All I'm saying is when you do the calculation for prior experience, you are not penalized if you don't hit the two-thirds. They have to give you your 3 points, even if you don't hit your two-thirds. I'm not saying that a pop-up window's not going to come up and ask you why you didn't meet your two-thirds. I'm not saying that if you consistently do that year after year after year, that someone's not going to email you and say, what's the deal here? Why haven't you done that? Okay. So there's an assurance, and then there's the math behind the prior experience. There's another document where it shows, and I'll upload that so you can test it out. And I was the same way too. I went back and forth with the Bloomin' folks. And I said, but how can that be? And she showed me, look, Lisa, and look, you know what? Go back and look at your last a PDF of your report, and they break down how they figure out prior experience, and it's not mentioned. It's not mentioned. And the regulations say they want you to have the assurance, but in the prior experience calculation, unless they change it, you can defend, you can fight to keep those 3 points. Now, again, if you use it and abuse it over and over again, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. That. What if we don't meet our numbers in year 5? Well, it depends what by what percentage. I mean, substantial progress. You want to look at your GAN, your grant award notification. Anybody out there remember or off the top of their head? They kind of break it down by year. I think maybe in the first year they say 75%, but then for the rest of the years they want you to be at least 85% of your capacity funded to serve. So the question is, when you ask me, what if you don't meet our numbers? I have to ask you another question. Well, what percentage are you at right now? And for sure, you got to forget about the 2/3 right now because you can't meet the assurance of 2/3 of your students being both low income and first generation if you don't first have your total number. It's never about how many you ended up. If you serve below your 500, it's not about, oh, you served 400, but that's okay because out of the 400, you're at 76% low income first generation. You're 2/3. No, because the 2/3 was off of the 500. So that's why if you go over, everything goes up as well. So we need to find out how much. So let's say you're below 85%. The way things are right now, I don't want to freak you out or anything. I don't know. I mean, it could be that they say, you know what, you're below 85%. I mean, you're writing for new funds, right? So if this was in your 4th year, going into your 5th year, they might, nowadays say, what's going on here? This is the second year. You're below, 80%. Is there a problem? We need to consider during the funding cycle whether or not we should fund you or not. But if you're at the very end of this grant is done on August 31st. The question is, are you going to get refunded? And that's the question that everybody's thinking. Are we going to get refunded? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if, there's something, in the regulations written there that if they think, let's say you get funded and you score high enough, but they put a disclaimer. They go, well, you know what? Maybe your score was a perfect score and everything looks great. But if there was any fraud or if you have years of not meeting your funded to serve numbers, and really that's the big deal, not so much your 2/3, but funded to serve and other stuff, they could decide not to. A lot of things right now are being, although they're written out, they're going ahead, they're claiming that they're regulations and things like that. So you want to, that's why I always get my numbers. Get your numbers. That's our number one. We meet and look at this every week. And yes, I'm keeping track of the 2/3, but if you are just now realizing you're not going to hit that 2/3, but if you at least got your numbers, I could say, look, it's not the end of the world. You got your numbers. We need to work on the 2/3, but you got your numbers and you can still, if this was a year that they were giving out prior experience points, you'd still get your 3 points, even though you didn't hit your 2/3. So I need to know where you're at with your numbers. And I can't, you know, like I said, it's the end of the 5th year. So if they were going to pull your ticket, here it is because it's the end of the 5th year. The question is it going to impact my funding? And I can't tell you for sure because I don't know the history of your program. I'm guessing everything's cool except for that. It shouldn't be an issue, but I don't know how low your percentage is of how many students you actually funded. I've heard if we don't meet the 2/3 number that they can cancel the grant. This is the first time I've heard that we don't need to meet the two. Again, what I'm saying is, I'm not saying blow it off. I'm saying you want to try to get that. You want to, right? But if you're in a situation where you have the numbers, but you don't have the 2/3, don't reduce your numbers to get the 2/3 because then you've double whammy. You might have to submit, that way. You might have to. No one plans, no one says from the beginning of the year, oh, blow that 2/3 off. No, I'm going to try it. And then you run this report off your database per school, per staff member to see where the issue is or where you can try, or maybe one of your schools or areas has more, so you shift over more applications there so you can get more of the low income first generation. You do whatever you can. I'm just saying, if you find out, or some of you all have inherited, or you stepped into a program where it's like this, what do I do now? It's July 22nd. There's not much you can do right now, unless magically a bunch of students that were other or first gen only all of a sudden turn in the correct paperwork to prove that they're low income. And here's something else to think about. If there were an audit to be done of your 500 and you had your two-thirds, we go through those files. Do you really have documentation to prove that students are using taxable income? And you ask the parents and you're talking about taxable income, not adjusted? Check it out. Pull up a couple of files. Make sure that you've got those receipts in there. So some folks can be claiming stuff, or you're inherited a program where it was claimed before and it's not even in the file. And that's what it has to be in the file. So, you know, again, no one tries to do that. No one does that. No one wants to do it over and over again. I'm at 311 out of 494. Well, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to be, I believe, a 500. So you're supposed to have two-thirds of 500. Okay. So I would try to get those six. You have time to get six. I would get the 500, and hopefully, I don't know, do the math, whatever two-thirds of 500 is. Try to make it work. You might have to over recruit, over serve to get that. Do your best to make it, but I'm just letting you know the facts are when you plug in the numbers and when they do prior experience, they don't take points off. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you the math behind it does not take the points off for prior experience. Okay. Check it out. Test me out. Look at your PDF of the PE points. Look at the database. Ask the software vendor, hey, when I get 3 points based on the number, does it ever look at my two-thirds? Is that even looked upon in the calculation? Does it say only counted as positive if it's a two-thirds, of the 500? And they'll tell you no. If we are not refunded, does 5 year even matter if we don't have our numbers? Well, if you're not refunded, I mean, it depends. If it's a really low number, the department could, even though you didn't get, they could say, well, that's why you didn't get refunded. But hey, what happened here? Where did the money go? Someone's got some explaining to do as to where the money went, and we only had these many students. So it doesn't mean, oh, you're scot-free, or you're not, you are, but the college is off the hook because, well, they didn't get refunded or they didn't bother to turn in an application. But the APR, someone still has to turn it in, and so that could be that. Any advice on how to meet the numbers has been hard trying to get students to join the program and complete the application. You open it up and you work with their friends, their families, their older brothers and sisters. You may have to have an adult version of your application, and you kind of meet with them just one time to provide them with two services, and they count toward your numbers, and then you don't have to do any follow-up. Okay, they count. So try to use, not use, but well, use the student to help open up opportunities to meet with their siblings, their family members. You don't put them through a workshop, or you don't put them through a curriculum. You meet with them one time off the needs assessment. That's part of the modified application. They're old enough so they can claim low income for themselves, and you get that documentation right away. In fact, that could be a way to meet your two-thirds, because then you go straight to the adult, the one who's over 24 or married, has kids. So this may be a way to get your numbers and always have your two-thirds. Okay. And so we can have a whole nother session for those of you, we're going to go into a lot of detail when we get into the professional development workshops. I think August 9th, whatever, those days in August, Donna, if you could put that, if you haven't already. But we have a whole 90 minutes where we talk about uh, different ways, thinking out of the box to get those numbers and your two-thirds, so that you never have to deal with the, what do I do? I'm just telling you again, if there's a choice between the two, go for the numbers. Don't try to make it a policy. Um, so if your grant award notification number 5 give you a substantial progress, meet criterion percent that you need every year. Okay, grant award notification field number 5. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Okay, so this again, and again, veterans served, if you know, no one's going to come back and say you did that wrong or right. The same thing with limited English proficiency. I think that might go away in the future, but I believe it's still going to be on there. Dual enrollment, they want to know how many students are in dual enrollment. If you know, you know. So your database should be tracking that. If you know, you know. There's no way to kind of come back and see if you've answered that correctly or not. And so let's look at these reports. I don't know why that's off. Do y'all see that off? Maybe. Let me go here and then back. Nope, it's still there. So I don't know what happened there. Okay, so let's look at section I of part two. Rigorous participants enrolled in rigorous courses that are not offered at target schools. I've answered this two different ways, and for the longest time I was answering it incorrectly. But here's the good news. Whether you answered it correctly or incorrectly, it doesn't impact your objectives. Nobody gets hurt. But what throws people off, it's a very awkwardly worded question. They want to know the breakdown of participants that are taking the rigorous secondary school program of study that are not offered at your target schools. Here in Texas, it's state law that every high school and middle school is prepared to offer the rigorous secondary school program of study eventually. Okay. So for me, in the state of Texas, it would be zeros. Okay. And it's not bad. Someone said about Talent Search to have 15% of the population as other. No, it's not bad at all. You might get a pop-up window on your APR, but you just explain, that it's difficult to recruit. You're providing a community a service, or impact, parental involvement, family involvement. That's all you have to put. If anybody even reads that explanation. All right. So do y'all understand this question? Maybe not understand it, but do you get why I think most states, not all of them, but most states require that all the state high schools offer the rigorous secondary school program study. So that means that for most of us, it should be zeros, except if we do have students that are taking the rigorous courses that were not offered at the target schools, but they're getting them um, by Talent Search paying for it. Haha, right? Like we have money to pay for that. Or they're going to other schools in other school districts to get those courses, and we're not paying for it. Or your college is paying for them to go take or get these courses for someplace else. Or if they get a third party, maybe the state is paying for them to get the rigorous program from somebody else. Does anyone fall into that category? I don't think so. I've rarely met someone. So usually it's zeros right there. Okay. Participants served during the reporting year by another federally funded program. There is another assurance that says that we're going to, paraphrasing right here, do our best to not duplicate services and to try to make sure more students are served, right? So this is why you should ask on your application, your new student application, and then once a year, for your students that are coming back, hey, are you planning to be in any, or are you or planning to be involved in any of these programs? And you can tweak it for your area. If there's a lot of, my folks there in Fort Worth, there's a lot of these programs around, so you might want to list them off. Granted, a lot of the kids don't know. A lot of kids don't even know they're in Talent Search, right? They used to call me the financial aid lady forever and a day. They had no idea I'd wear Talent Search, Boys and Girls Club. It's the financial aid lady from the Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Club, Boys and Girls, whatever. I don't care. Just let me come see y'all and work with y'all, that kind of stuff. So a lot of the students don't even know they were in Talent Search, right? So on your application, you might want to go ahead and state, I don't know, or other. Just ask, and that's one way that you can say that you're trying to adhere to that assurance. Students can be in both Talent Search and Upward Bound. They can. Do I recommend it? No. Have I done it? Yes. When I started the Upward Bound program at the Boys and Girls Club, those first couple of years, we had students in both. I had to make sure there was a separation of services. I had to double check. I had to get from both database programs services provided to make sure that we did not duplicate services. So that, is a little extra headache, right? So as soon as we could, I changed my policy and said, you know what? Never mind. We're going to keep them completely separate. Okay. But other people will tell you, you can't do that. You can. Yeah, you can. You just have to do more documentation and record keeping. And people will say, well, that's a headache to do. Exactly. That's why the easiest thing would be to say, no, you can't be in both. Okay. But they can be. Anyway, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you put, it stays blank. Here's where we track if our seniors have completed the FAFSA and do not enroll in college is the first thing, versus seniors who complete the FAFSA and enroll, students that didn't do the FAFSA, and that adds up. So this is something you should be tracking with all your seniors. How many did the FAFSA, how many did not, and then you compare it to students that ended up going to college or say they're going to college, because we're going to verify that. Here's where you would answer the CPPs. So you've got to see the instructions to go into detail about the current CPPs. Are the priorities that were put into the 25, for the competition, they won't come into play until 26, 27. They're going to be worded slightly different because they're not CPPs anymore, they're priorities. Then they want to know how many students did not attend a target school. I get this question all the time. I thought we couldn't serve anybody who didn't go to a target school. Well, then why is it on the APR? Because you are allowed to serve students that are attending, um, that live in the target area. Okay, they don't have to be going to your target school, but at the same time, I would recommend you keep a very tight rein on that, because you don't want to have your staff going all over the place unless they have to. But then you remind them, look, target schools are like our best friends that we see all the time. Non-target school students or non-target schools are our acquaintances. We have to keep them separate. We don't see them as often. We favor our target schools. We treat our schools that are not target schools but in the target area, or participants or family members that live in the target area, they come second. You know, they're our priority is our students at the target schools. So that's why they ask. And you don't get a pop-up window if they're like a certain percentage. They just say, hey, how many? And then the rest of them that are at target schools add up here in that listing. And then they want to know about dual enrollment. They're obsessed with dual enrollment. Okay, so what school is it? Is it dual enrollment? Do they have a dual enrollment? So added together, the number of the students that you're claiming should add, on your total APR. But this is where, all my parents, aunts and uncles, older brothers and sisters, grandparents that I'm working with, their numbers would be here because they're not attending a target school. When I add that to my middle school and high school students, I get the total amount of the 500. I keep saying 500. Section 3, this is also a report that should be run every week, especially the beginning of the year and toward the end of the year, to see where we're at with our categories of what we call grade standing, or the educational status. Because what status they're put into at the beginning of every year, or when you start meeting with them, indicates whether or not they're going to be counted for Section 4. For example, everybody who's a middle school student at the beginning of the year, or a freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior, or in a GED program that's equivalent to the level of a senior, all those I know for sure. And 7 and 8, the fourth year senior, fifth year senior, all of those categories 1 through 8 will eventually be, I'll have to, if I have 400 in that category, I'll have to answer for those 400 in Section 4, but not my other participants, or these are, a secondary school dropout. This one here, uh, the this one, a dropout student, um, code 10, other participants, and it says, please provide explanation if it's larger than 10%. So you just have to respond as to why you have more than 10%. Someone said we have 15%. Just, it doesn't say you can't. It just say they want to know why. It doesn't mean that's bad or good. Moving forward, I don't know if they're going to change that percentage. There's no regulation stated, but there's guidelines here, or not even guidelines, it's the APR. So I'm not saying you keep it. Some people will tell you can't go over 10%. No, you can go over 10%. You just have to explain yourself. And some people say, well, I don't want to explain myself. Okay, then keep it 9%, but you could go over if you need your numbers. And if I need my numbers, look, if I had a waiting list of ninth through 12th grade students, I wouldn't even bother with the middle school kids. I can get all my 500 from just the high school kids. No problem. I could have served middle school kids. I don't have to. Um, Someone says, well, I can get all the 500 at the middle school. And I said, well, if you do that, then you wouldn't have anybody meeting most of the objectives for a while. So you may not want to do that either. So the more you know about the APR, the more it helps you be strategic and focus on certain groups. My biggest group is my 12th grade. I mean, not my biggest group, but the group every year that counts the most to me are the 12th graders because my middle school through 11th graders at best help me with objective number one. My high school students that are seniors, the middle school, yeah, 6th through 11th graders help me with the first objective. And then the 12th graders help me with graduation with regular, graduation with rigorous, and college enrollment. So you see, it's all about your seniors and possibly, if you decide, some GED students as well that are at the level of being a 12th grader. Okay. So anybody in those categories of 10, like definitely in 10, I don't have to report on them on the APR section 4. They don't want to know. I get to count them toward the numbers and I need them for section 2 and 3 to equal my 500, for example. But my section 4 will not add up to 500. Why? Because maybe I have 100 that are other participants, or maybe not that many, but I have whatever I have in that number. Okay. So that educational status should not be blank at this time. It should grow during the year. It should be listed there and grow with the program. So we have section 4, educational status, talent search participants at the end of the reporting period. And this is where finally I have to account for all my 6th through 11th graders. And I go ahead and the database we utilize, most of our kids, correct me if I'm wrong, in 6th through 11th graders get promoted to the next grade level. So there's a system, there's a Think It and Blooming where I can automatically kick them into the next grade level. It's faster that way. And then I double check with the schools and I go ahead and adjust it for the small number that do not. So initially I may put A1 for everybody and then go back to A2 if they were retained for the few. It's just faster that way rather than do it one at a time. Go ahead and do that and then figure out, well, who did not make it to the next grade level? And we figure that out. And it gives you the math behind it. Then we get into the objectives for the seniors regular diploma, rigorous diploma, and they break it down. Notice it doesn't ask for your other participants and either one of they don't ask for them. It's like, oh, they completely forget about them. Now, this part is where they go to college gets confusing. If you were to do it straight into this, if you were only working on these instructions and trying to keep track of this, it would be a headache. Luckily, hopefully, you all have a system that will allow you to do this one at a time per your seniors. And as you answer, this breaks it down into, well, you would have already told them if they were a senior who graduated with regular diploma and didn't get rigorous, but that they went to college and also did a FAFSA. And those things, when you answer them individually in their individual student data window, this will pre-populate an APR section 4 for you. So don't try to do it within the APR. Either one of these, if y'all are using Bloom in section 2 and 3, you work on it in another window, student data. When students are beginning the year, they're done individually. And then when you start working on section 4, some parts of it you can do for all groups, like the 6th through 11th graders. But then for the seniors, I go back to student data, bring up all my 12th graders, and I answer these one at a time. And the minute I answer one at a time in student data, it is updating in the system a spreadsheet that looks just like this. Okay. And you're like, wow, I did that. Yeah, you did it, but you did it one at a time because it's crazy the way they break it down. Because then they want to know about placements. They want to know not only did they go to college, but what type of college based on whether they were regular or rigorous. Okay. That could be really confusing if you go straight into a spreadsheet. You should do it individually that feeds into the spreadsheet. And then post-secondary attainment, your database asks for you to plug in your objectives. On the website, they will have your objectives. So if you don't know, it'll tell you, okay, what they have for you. And then we have choices here. Do you want to do it just for the seniors only? Or the difference is, do you want to do it for seniors plus those GED students that you said were like seniors? You don't get to make this selection every year. This would have been a selection that you made the first year of the funding cycle. So when you go online, if you don't know, you will know, or you look at your PDF of last year's report, it'll tell you what the selection was. You can't change it. The other thing you can't change is how you track. You can't decide this year I want to be asked to track everybody. Next year I want to do random sample. No, this has already been decided. If you don't know, look at your PDF for last year's report and where the check mark is. Otherwise, you'll have to wait till the website becomes active and you log in to check that out. Then we have calculating the post secondary attainment for students that graduated from high school and went to college by fall of 2019. Okay. So that is the cohort. That's the magic cohort. We're looking at 1920. Okay, those are the numbers for the APR for 25, 26. So you need to go in your database, should have remembered for you, or you should have the file that somebody there uploaded to the department 6 years ago that said, hey, these are the seniors that are going to college this year, which is something you have to do. The one Excel file that y'all have to upload and create would be this year's seniors, seniors that graduated in May or June, that you know went to college. You have to create an Excel type file for that and upload it to the website. And then you hold on to it, but 6 years later, they're going to give it back to you. So, based off what you told the department back in 1920 as to who was going to college, now you have to see and find out if they graduate or not. And in these types of categories, this is where you can use Clearinghouse. This is where you can use self-reported. You can get any type of receipt. Worst case scenario, I talked to her. I wrote it down on this form that we created to say, yep, they've graduated or they have not. So you have these different types. See all the things that count. Certificates count, associate's degree count, bachelor's degree count. They even want to know if they got both or they got more than one, and some that didn't, and unfortunately, some that passed away. All right. So that leaves me with what, like 2 minutes to take questions. And do we have any? Let me see. I'll look, Donna, to see. There might be some things in the chat. What if they're dual enrollment AP classes? Does that mean it was a rigorous program? You know what? It depends. Don't you love that answer? You in the regulations for talent search, look where it says definitions. Google talent search regulations and go to the definitions. They have 6 definitions as to what it means to be a rigorous secondary school program of study. And 2 of them refer in a way to what the state says is their definition. So is if the state, like look at definition number 2, if which is what the state says is an honors program, I believe, or advanced diploma honors program. If the state of Texas says X, Y, and Z is what we say is a honors or advanced diploma. Okay, well, what do you mean? What do I have to do? Oh, well, you have to take at least 2 AP courses, or you have to be dual enrolled. Okay, bingo, I can count that. But if it says, oh, they got to take this type of math, this type of thing, get this certain GPA, they didn't mention dual enrollment. They didn't mention AP. So you can't automatically assume that if they're an AP or dual enrollment, that means rigorous, because the definitions we don't get to come up with. We get to come up with how we define if a student needs our program, definition of academic need, but we cannot make up our own rigorous secondary school program of study definition. Those are set in the regulations, and 2 of them say whatever the state says. So you need to study what the state says. Well, number one, you need to go into your proposal in the objective section or even in the needs section where somebody should have clearly stated, hey, y'all, we're using definition number 2 per the regulations, which means this, which means this. Okay. So it's very, very clear what should be used. Hopefully, it should have been very crystal clear. All right. So sometimes it is part. Now, there is a definition number 6 does talk about AP and only AP, but it's very specific as to how many classes they AP classes they took and in how many classes they got a 3 or higher. So that doesn't mean, oh, anybody who took an AP class is rigorous. Nope, unless it falls under one of the other definitions. If we pay for the tuition costs of a students for dual enrollment courses, is this where we would put that number? Yes. If you had to pay for that, you would go back to section two, that very confusing, what I thought was confusing question. I'm trying to get back up there about the rigorous program. This is where you would say if you paid for it, you would put your number right here in this first category. Okay. Let's see here. Run out of time, but do we have any chat or anything else, Donna, that is pending? Really, um,
I
I
don't
think
think so.
okay. I think I answered some of the, okay. If you have any other questions, please send me an email, info@nosotros, .org, nosotrosedu.org, or, go to our website. You could send us a chat as well. Um, this recording will be available, I think, maybe in the next couple of days. You should get, it will be also uploaded to our YouTube channel, and I'll do a note summary as well. Um, Anyways, hopefully this was helpful. If you would like to do this again, let us know, or we could have like office hours possibly starting in the maybe later in the summer for talent search. But my biggest thing is to go ahead and get started. You have about 90% of the information you need. Maybe you need to wait to verify if students persisted to the next grade level by getting their class schedules that say the ninth grader went on to 10th grade, or some confirmation from the high school counselors. But you can already be asking your staff, do you know of anybody? Do we remember? Do we, if we know of someone that hasn't gone on, let me know, but we'll confirm it. Major, major important to do that for all your seniors. Get some preliminary results regarding how your seniors are doing on all the objectives for you to, as fast as you can when the school year starts, get your confirmation, but don't start working on the APR when school starts. You start closing out, you start finalizing the APR as fast as you can, okay? All right, thank you all so much. Thanks, everyone. I hope this was helpful. And you guys have a great week. Stay cool. Thank you, Don and Leah. We can stop the recording now.